Welcome to The Feast Life, where we empower you, the modern homeschool mom, to create a life and homeschool you love, one founded on faith, family, freedom, and fun. I'm your host, Julie Ross, creator of the award-winning homeschool curriculum, A Gentle Feast, and a certified Christian life coach. For more information on today's episode and to access my free gift for you, check out thefeastlife.me. Charlotte Mason once said, "Life should be all living, not a mere tedious passing of time." So on this show, we seek to savor the feast of life. Girl, grab your favorite beverage and pull up a chair. You are welcome at this table. Hey everyone, welcome to the Feast Life podcast. I'm your host, Julie Ross, and I'm here today with Amber O'Neal Johnston, who you probably know better as the Heritage Mom. Welcome, Amber.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited today to talk to you about your new book. First of all, congratulations. It released, I don't know, I'm sure this episode will air, but at the end of January, we're recording this. Is just came out. Your new book is called Soul School, Taking Kids on a Joy-Filled Journey Through the Heart of Black American Culture. And girl, wow. I can't imagine the amount of hours this took, because this is different than your last book, A Place to Belong, because you include a lot of book recommendations, which I think is fabulous. And my Amazon cart thanks you for causing me to feed my book addiction a little more. But girl, how long did this take you to write this?
Oh my gosh. I had 6 months to write the actual
That's,
book, but
oh, wow.
it was insane, as you can
Yeah.
imagine. But I was working on the ideas in the books. I would say it took years because I read all of these books, and
Yeah.
to land with this number of books in the book itself, I read however many times
Yeah.
more than that I didn't include.
Yeah, that's
So
what I was thinking. I was like, okay, she whittled it down to 100. That had to mean
yeah,
there was probably 200 to 300 or more that you read that you didn't include. So, but it wasn't like when they gave you the book assignment, you went to the library and got 300 books. Like, these are ones you have been reading with your kids and with your family over time. So you already had a good idea of like kind of some of the ones you wanted to bring in.
yes, and then I wanted
Okay.
to fill them in. Part of the challenge was that I never realized before how many of the books we enjoy in our home are out of print. And so
I feel that.
that's not,
Yep.
I never really worry
And it's so
about you
sad.
probably because curriculum and
Yeah.
that people need to be able to access the books. But for me in just my house, I only need one copy. So I
Yeah.
just get books off of used bookstores or whatever, and I never think anything about it. And so when I first started out, I was like, oh yeah, I can whip this together in 6 months. And I was like, oh, over 50% of the books in my house
Oh
are out of
my
print
God.
too. So it really took some digging and maneuvering. And the biggest challenge, honestly, was the chapter on high school books for teenagers,
Yes.
because it really bumped up against like my value system and how
Hmm.
far I was willing to go
Yeah.
with what was available. And it helped me see that we have some real holes in the market. That's one. And it also helped me see my teens are growing up,
Yeah.
and the books are not gonna be the same. As they don't want to read The Secret Garden, right?
Right.
They've been there, they've done that,
Yeah.
and they do want to read some things that get into some heavier topics. And so I had to grow in that as well. So it's a little bit of both. We need some better books
Hmm.
for them. And I had to grow and realize they're not little children anymore. So it was
Oh,
a lot.
it's hard, isn't it? I have three teenagers now, so in the midst of the high school years, and yes, it is hard to find, especially some of the newer published ones. Just the quality is not there. And
Yeah.
but if the book itself is really wonderful, I'll get to a section. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm okay reading this to my kids and talking about it,
Yeah.
but I can't recommend it to a gentle feast. Like,
Yes. That was, you just characterized
yeah.
basically my all my sleepless nights. That was it, right?
That because then I feel like parents, when they're looking at these selections, can trust that A, you read these, and then B, you're a person of values and character. And so you're not going to include something that, and if there is anything, and I only found a few notes, but you did put some notes in, and
Yeah.
that because there's nothing worse than reading a book and going, or your kid comes to you and be like, Mom, I read blah, blah, blah. And you're like, what?
Yes. And I think that to me was what I try to do is no surprises. And that's what I ask as a mother when people are recommending books to me. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to read certain books with my kids and discuss it, like you said, but please, I don't want to be surprised because maybe I'll choose to read something aloud rather than
Mhm.
send them off to read on their own. Or maybe there'll be some topics we'll talk about
Yeah.
before they start reading it. Or maybe I decide that this isn't the right book for this kid right now, but let me be informed, help me make an informed decision as a parent. And so I tried to do that in times where I wasn't sure. I was like, my kids can read this. I'm not quite sure if everyone could. Then I made a note so that parent could decide on their own. And I think that's really what parents are. It helps build trust that, like,
Mhm.
you're calling things out and bringing it to my attention and letting me make the best decision for my own child.
Yeah. And I love that you include, so you have various ages. So it breaks it down by ages. So you're not just getting this big list and you're like, I don't know if my kid's ready for this. And then you also include some conversation questions, which is so important. So getting them to think a little bit deeper, or if the parent like doesn't have time to read the book, like you're saying in high school, they can ask some questions without having to read it themselves. And then I also love that you bring in some just like extension activities, or go watch this video that ties into this person or something like that. And then some other books that kind of tie in as well. So how did you envision parents using this section?
So I think that a lot of times there's some things that over the years become more natural for us, especially as homeschooling parents, but even for classroom teachers, to engage in conversation with about books with our kids. So it's
Hmm.
not an assignment necessarily, it's not a worksheet necessarily, but parents are like, they're like, you always recommend these books, but then what am I supposed to do? And of course I'm
Mm.
like, oh, we'll have them narrate. They're like,
Yeah.
yeah, but then what? And then, or maybe they don't use
Yeah.
Charlotte Mason, or they're like, they want to do something beyond narrating. And they're looking, and I understand what they're looking for. They want to take these books out of being purely academic
Mm.
into being part of their family culture. And how do you make that leap? And I think that part of that is being able to have conversations about how this book relates to life, our lives, other people's lives, how we live today, or what do we learn from the book, or what do we
Yeah.
take away from it? What piques our interest? What makes us smile? What makes us hurt? And so the questions get at that. And I try to use questions that if the parents read the book, that's great. Maybe they could answer their questions too. They can say, well, this is
Mm.
what I think. But even if they didn't read the book, they can engage with the kids on these topics because the questions aren't comprehension questions.
Yes.
It's not what color was her
Yeah.
dress on page 7. It's more about finding out, have you ever felt the way that the
Mm.
character felt in this story? And if so, how did you deal with those feelings? Or in this book, this little boy, he misses his grandfather so much, and he starts to doubt whether the things his grandfather says to him are true because he can no longer see him. And have you
Mm.
ever missed someone that you love and care about? And what do you do? Do you reach out to them, or how do you feel comforted? And there,
Mm.
so the questions are the types of things that anyone can answer. And I think it helps parents and children get to know each other
Mm.
better.
Mhm.
And so it extends this book beyond just the books you're reading, but also into the relationships in your family. And it helps create that. It does help create a literary culture, but also just a general storytelling culture. Like,
Mm.
I'll tell
Mhm.
you about someone that I've missed, or I'll tell you how it felt every time I had to leave my grandparents' house, knowing I wouldn't see them again for several months. And you can tell me how it feels when that happens with you. And
Mm.
we can build those memories and ideas together. So that's my main idea for the questions. For the digging deeper projects or activities, I'll be quite honest, it's like when your kids, you give them a book and they read it and they're like, okay, I'm done. What's next? I'm like, you're done already.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be like, here, but did you really learn about the Tuskegee? And what do you, aren't you more curious beyond just that book? Like, what
Yeah.
about this awesome video that really talks about their lives and maybe the people they left behind? Or do you want to see what that thing that was mentioned in this book, do you want to see what it looks like in real life? There's a
Mm.
museum that has like a virtual exhibit where you can see it and turn it around in 3D
That's
and
cool.
see what it
Yeah.
looks like. So this kind of further exploration where you're not just like rushing through. I read 300 books this year.
Yeah.
Did you really? I mean, like, you read the words, but did you like
Mm. Yeah.
did you really grow from
Mm.
300 books this year? And so those are options that help your kids to be able to grow through the books and to explore topics more deeply so that they're getting more from the books, but also just, I think, enjoying the curiosity of life more,
Hmm.
just like
Hmm.
being more curious and answering questions that come up that we normally just ignore because we're moving on to the next book. So sit and be with it for a little bit.
Yeah, I love that because like rabbit trails, like this made me think of this, which made me think of this. And oftentimes we don't have enough free time in our lives to explore those rabbit trails, or if this is school, we got to fit it in here. But like when you're reading wonderful books, it becomes part of your life and you're naturally curious. But then you don't want your kid just Googling stuff. So like you help provide
Yeah.
some direction for those rabbit trails if they are, interested and motivated, and we hope they are. And I love the thought of the questions being more on not comprehension. We don't need any more of those, right? But it's really focused on the relationship, building empathy, building those critical thinking skills. I think it'd be great for like a book club even or something like that to use.
Absolutely. It's right for book club.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I tell everybody, you're welcome. Everything, yeah, that definitely that you would need to have a book club either with other people because my whole family we're all in our own book clubs, but or even just a family book club. So either way, whatever you have available to you.
Yeah. So other than the 100 books that are in here, which is very, very meaty, you do have some beginning chapters as well in here, laying some of the foundation. Who are you hoping is going to read this and implement some of this? I'm going to write a book about books, and I hope these
Yeah,
people read it.
my number one target, it's moms. And that's what makes this book different. It's not an academic book. I think a lot of
Yeah,
teachers I know already, their teachers are telling me they're ordering it and using it. And I think
that's
that's
awesome.
great.
Yeah.
But usually, a lot of books that have studied, let's say, Black children's literature in the past, they're old, they're dated, but they were also written by academics for other academics, and you
Mm,
can tell. And this book is
yeah.
really, it's written to parents, and I say moms in particular because that's who I expect they're probably going to read it. And in the beginning, what I'm trying to explain is if we were to go together and have tea, and you ask me, Amber, tell me what you're looking for when you talk about the idea that all children need access to the really beautiful books about Black history and culture because I see that's missing
Hmm.
in a lot of what we're doing with our kids these days. And if they said, teach me how to look for those same things, tell me, explain to me, that's what the beginning chapters are. I'm trying to say, when I think of Black American culture, these are the things that feel most familiar. These are the things that ring true. And here's how I expect to see that show up in young people's literature. And so it goes starting all the way from toddlers to teens, which was also important to me because I have kids that I have high school, middle school. When I was writing this book, late elementary, early
Mm,
elementary. And I was like, can I just have a one-stop shop that I can get something for all of my kids or a book that families can grow with? And so that
mm.
was the idea behind it. But I know that when I'm looking at book lists, you can just Google a book list.
Right.
No one needs to buy that. You can Google a book list, but what you can't Google is a curated, annotated book list by
Hmm.
someone that you trust who will also explain to you why they chose that book.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've struggled with for a long time. I'll get this like great book list and I'll look and we'll read these books and then they'll
Mm-hmm.
pop up and there'll be a book and I'm like, but why? What's so great about this book? I'm like, it's like the emperor's clothing. I'm just like, everyone's like, great, this is so great. Help me
Yes.
understand. And I would love to have seen something notes from the person who created that list of what value they saw, not to challenge them, but to teach me.
Mm,
And so I tried to provide that with this. It's like, here's this book. Here's why I think it's relevant, or here's what I find beautiful about it or important about it. And very specifically, and here's how your family can explore it. And so there are like 120, there's supposed to be 100. I couldn't bring it down. So there are 120 core books,
uh,
and each book has two second helpings. So I think of it like a big soul food dinner. You
wow. Yeah.
always go back for more. And so it's
It's a
basically
feast.
if you're, yes, exactly. If your kid liked this book, they'll
Mm.
probably really enjoy these other two as well. For some
Which is
reason,
so
these are the
helpful
two
for
that
parents because it's like,
so
where do we
help.
go now? They really like something or a series and then it's over and you're like, oh,
I know. I'm just like, I know. And I used to be like, I don't know, you wonder where these like snobby ideas come from, but I used to be such a snob about series. If it had
yeah.
more than just like three books, I was like, they can't write that many good books, whatever. Then when my kids started reading more and they were reading faster, I was like, can I get a series with 117 books in it, please?
So I don't have
Because
to think about this for a whole nother year.
anymore. It's okay that.
Yeah.
So I just had to laugh at myself about that. But yeah, the second helpings, and I think it expands our kids as well because maybe sometimes the second helpings, there's not an
Mm,
exact, it's not readily apparent why I connected those books. It could be that they're in the same
mm.
time period. It could be that the main characters are very similar in some way, or that the book is structured in a similar way, or the illustrator is the same. There are all these different things. So it's a little nugget there. I think it's fun for the kids to try to figure out as well. Why did she connect these books? What do they have in common?
Oh, that is fun. Well, education is a science of relations, right?
There you go.
And so I know that you're a Charlotte Mason homeschooler, and I'm just curious, like, how did your kind of philosophy and approach to education, or does it influence this book or tie in at all?
Obviously the idea of great literature. And I think like when I first started down this path, and a lot of times people, I'll say, like, for example, our local librarian, who I really appreciated that she saw my family and she saw my kids coming into the library all the day, all the time, and she wanted to help. And she would always make like book recommendations to my
Oh,
kids. And I thought
I just love
exactly because
librarians. Aren't they just the best people in the
I
world?
know they
Like,
are. They're so good. And I have such a good relationship with her to this day. But there was a point where I had to pull her aside and I was like, hey, girl, so these books that you're recommending to my kids, I appreciate that you're doing this so much. And I know you see that we're a Black family and you're recommending these books that have Black people in them. But I have to tell you, my kids aren't even allowed to read some of the stuff that you're sharing.
yeah.
And that also you see these books as being mirrors for my kids,
Hmm.
but they're actually not. My kids live right down the street from the library here.
Hmm.
They have a mom and a dad and loving grandparents, and they're being raised in a Christian home. And like that is not their lives.
Mm.
That's not how they live. And so that's a window for them as well, even though the characters in the books you're picking out are Black. And so I realized, and she was so thankful that I shared that with her and I explained it and I
Yeah.
gave her some examples of other books. And I realized that's the case with a lot of people. So
Mm.
for me, and I feel like this comes from my Charlotte Mason path. Every book, just because it's a book, doesn't mean that it's a good book,
Right.
first of all. And so I want more Black books, but I want them to actually be good.
Yeah, right.
And then the other idea is that I wanted breadth. I don't want there to be like urban fiction and
Right.
all the stories are like hard hitting
Yeah.
poverty and struggle in the concrete jungle. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
That's one thing. But what about these other things? And what about
Hmm.
nature? So you'll see a lot of books related to that. That's coming from my Charlotte Mason
Yeah.
background. Um, what about the idea that there are ideas presented in the book, that
Mm-hmm.
it's not so simplistic or so, I don't know what the word would be. I try not to use the word twaddle because I have a hard
We'll just
relationship with
whisper it.
okay, so it's not so tall, you know what I mean? But that there's something there. And I know that's a
Books of
subjective term.
substance has that.
Yes, there you
Okay.
go, books of substance. Because I've had people say that certain books, like that I've suggested, well, I think that book is twaddle. And I'm like, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Because maybe I see something in that book that you don't see. And we are coming from
Mm-hmm.
two different
Yeah. That's
places.
a really
And
good
if
point.
I got a chance to explain my idea to you, you still
Yeah.
might not agree, but at least you
Yep.
would know that it's not that I just have bad taste, but that I'm looking for something different.
Yes.
um, and so I think that for me is a big part of it.
Yeah, no, yeah, I could definitely see how it has shaped it. I do the fact that you include a lot of variety of genres. There was a dystopian book in there, and yeah, like some really fun things that I was like, oh, I never even thought about that. Because typically, especially like a curriculum like I write, it's easier to think through books that might fall into the historical fiction vein or biographies or something like that. But it was like, oh no, like dystopian and fiction and poetry and the nature, like you talk about. There's just and I just didn't even know that some of those were even out there.
And yeah, so that's the fun part about it. And that's why I said the subtitle, Taking Kids on a Joy-Filled Journey Through the Heart of
Yes.
Black American Culture. That includes American history, Black American history, and some of that is really hard. Not all
Hmm.
of it, but a lot of it's hard. That includes that, but it's not only that. And so it's
Hmm.
coming of age and mystery and fantasy and biography and nonfiction and historical fiction, which is actually my favorite genre,
Yeah.
and beautiful picture books. And it's all of that, and the poetry and novels and verse and everything.
Hmm.
So I'd say that this is really a survey of young people's literature written by Black authors, focused on Black characters and stories, not as a replacement for anything that we've been reading, but as an expansion, as an
Hmm.
addition to say, I think that this helps. It doesn't complete all that we need to share with our kids, but I think this
Yeah.
helps expand it. And I think other people will be expanding in other directions. But this is like my contribution to it.
Yeah. I love that subtitle, by the way, like joy filled. I just think that's so key, right? We want to experience all of it. We want to understand it. And you talk about some of like cultural experiences and all these different realms of culture, sports, art, music, and all that stuff, and just bringing all of it together, which I thought was a really beautiful way to give parents some tips on like oh, have you thought about diving into this too? Or have you thought about diving into this? For you, you talk in here, and you talked a lot more about this in A Place to Belong, but for you growing up, you didn't get to see a lot of you and your culture represented in the books that you were reading. Today's episode is brought to you by A Gentle Feast. A Gentle Feast offers a complete living books curriculum, an award winning early reading program, and more tools to equip you to apply Charlotte Mason's timeless philosophy into your modern homeschool. Go to agentlefeast.com to check it out. Smooth and easy days are closer than you think. How is this kind of process of using some of these books in your homeschool, but then also writing this book? How is that kind of, or has it, let me rephrase the question, has that helped heal some of that for you?
Oh, absolutely. I told somebody this book was like worth like a year of therapy because
That's awesome.
it's like in a couple ways. One,
Mhm.
I actually read all these books. So if you
Yeah.
imagine
All the
124
ideas.
books,
Yeah.
140 second helping, so that's
Yeah. Wow.
300 books plus all
Wow.
the books I didn't include.
Yeah.
I read them. And so
Mm.
talk about my cup being full. And so
Mm-hmm.
there's a healing in that way of making up for lost time, a feeling that it's never too late. And then there's a healing in that I caught this issue very early on with my kids. And so they've grown up surrounded by this literature, and to the point where my oldest kids get it now, but they've all gone through a period that's like, why do people want to talk to you? Why
Who
do
are
you go
you?
places? Yeah, because they're just like, what? And I try to explain it to them, and their thing is, doesn't everyone read these books? And I was like, no,
Yeah.
really. And so that's very surprising to them. So that's
Mm.
healing to me to say
Yeah.
that I could have, I guess, like that we have it within us to change course at really any time. Maya Angelou used to say that when you know better, you do better. And I was able to do that, and to see the fruit tells me, it gives me hope that we never have to feel like, oh, when we get new information, oh, it's too far gone. I've already messed it up, so just forget it. And I've seen that, nope, that's a good place to change course and to try to incorporate the new ideas and information
Mhm.
that you have and grow as a person, and your kids will grow along with you. So that's really good. And also, it feels good, I'll say in general, but especially in the Charlotte Mason world, a lot of books written with Black characters, I often feel are denigrated
Mm.
as not good enough literature. And so it feels good to, if you consider this book like my house, it's like I'm over here in my house and I'm going to talk about it the way I see it.
Mm.
And since it's not a conversation, it's just my book writing,
Yeah,
it
right.
opportunity to just get all of that out and to say, you might see this in this book, but here's what I see. And here's what this book has done for children that I've seen who have read this
Mm.
book. This is what this book
Mhm.
did for me. And to give it an opportunity for me to elevate this literature and to explain to people why it's important and why it should be considered, like, it shouldn't be considered substandard or something.
Yeah, yeah, that's really good. So I thought we could maybe do a little book club conversation. Is that cool? You up for
Do it.
that? Okay. I chose three of my favorite books from here. It was really hard.
Okay.
But so the first one is Bud Not Buddy. So why did you choose this book?
Okay. Bud Not Buddy. I chose this book because there is a family that is not fully intact.
Yep.
And there is pain that comes out of that.
Mm.
And it's a reality for so many families. But in the end, the story is redeemed. And I think you'll see that across the board in Soul School books. I don't shy away from hard things, but I don't choose books that leave kids in a raw
Mm,
place.
that's
I
really good.
always want
Yeah.
them to be left with this idea that all stories can be redeemed
Mhm.
and that you should have hope. You have all reasons to have hope for the future if this is your family, if you've lost a parent, if you don't have
Mhm.
parents, if you've been rejected by someone that you wanted to love or that you wanted to love you back. I also think that there is some good cultural storytelling. There's music that's a part of it. The
Mhm.
idea
Yeah, I
of
like the music part a lot. Yeah.
yeah, the music's important. The fictive kinship of building a family out of people that you don't share blood
Mhm.
relationship with, or
Mhm.
that they can protect you, or that they can be there for you in the same way, which you see a lot in the African American community. Those are some of the things. And in I think it's chapter 5 of the book, I spent some time talking about the authors and illustrators, and this idea that this book is when I'm reading this literature with my kids, there's a duality to it. It's the story, Bud Not Buddy, but it's also I want them to know about the author.
Mm.
He's an important author
Mhm.
in Black
Yes, yeah.
children's literature and has offered many gifts, many literary gifts and beyond to our society, our community. And so I talk about the author as well
Mhm.
and why reading his work is important. So it could be the way we may read Pride and Prejudice, but then we also learn about Jane Austen and her life.
Mhm.
And
That's
so
a
I
really good
do that
point.
as well. So that's another reason that book is in there because he's such a prolific and important author.
And that's a great point too, because we do read about Jane Austen or we do read about Charlotte Bronte, but the people that they were and the lives they experienced influenced the books that they wrote. And what what makes them a really great author is because those books did come alive. And part of that is because they're experiencing things that really related to their own lives and they were able to bring that forth in the writing, which makes it so engaging. And I think that's an important part to bring up because oftentimes we just focus on the story and we don't actually spend the time to talk about, especially newer authors. We're all going to study Jane Austen, right? But like, or Shakespeare.
Right.
Yeah, these newer authors too, like their lives are deeply impactful to the way that they wrote as well. And I do love that it doesn't shy away from loss in the story. And so even if maybe you haven't had a parent who died, you might have had a parent who left, or you've had a grandparent who passed away, or something like that. And the kids being able to see someone that they can relate to, a character that's kind of same age or whatever, that experienced loss in a similar way does really help them process their loss in a different way as well, which I think is really key. And so even just going back to your concept of seeing yourself in the story, so even if you cannot necessarily relate to Bud culturally, you may have a loss in your life and you can relate. That's a mirror for you
Absolutely.
and being able to relate to the character as well. Okay, so I love that story. Okay, the next one is
And let
out
me
of
just say
my,
this
oh, go ahead.
to the point you just made. The discussion questions in the book, I was very, very deliberate about the questions not being dependent on your ethnicity. So you're not going to see stuff like, it's what does your family fix when they have soul food
Yeah.
Sundays, or stuff like that, where the
Yeah.
kid's like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. So the questions are always, the books are very specific, but the questions are much more
Mm,
universal,
which is
getting
great.
at
Yeah.
the parts of our shared humanity that
Hmm.
we all can feel. So that point you just made about other kids, this could be a mirror to them because they've
Hmm.
had a similar loss. That's exactly my whole point in
Yay.
all of Soul Cycle
Yeah.
is saying that just like the other books that are most typically found on lists are considered
Hmm.
universal, and I'm saying that these are too. So
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Okay, so my next favorite one is Out of My Mind. So in that book, the girl has cerebral palsy. She's not able to talk or communicate, but she's actually extremely smart and wants to. And we see, I'm not going to give spoilers, but my 15-year-old is actually reading this book right now. She wants to
Wow.
be an occupational therapist and work with children with disabilities. And so I'm like, oh, I got the perfect book for you. And she read 3 chapters the other day. She comes in my room and her eyes are all full of tears. She's like, Mom, why are you making me read this? And I was like, oh, you don't like it? She's like, no, it's amazing, but it's so
Oh my gosh, I know it's such a good book.
sad.
It's such a good book.
Have you seen the
Um,
movie? She was like, there's a movie. It
I
just
have
came out.
not seen the movie. My daughter saw it, but I did not see it. They watched it without me, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, that was a betrayal.
Seriously.
It was really good. That's another one where Sharon Draper, as an author, is an important author for a community that I want my kids to have a relationship with her work. But Out of My Mind, I chose that book because the idea that sometimes when we think of people, we think of someone who has a different physical ability or different challenge that they deal with, or they learn differently, or they're Black, or they're this, or they're that. And the truth is that we're all many things. Because I can look at my experience as a Black person, but also as a woman, or as a Christian, or as a homeschool mom, or
Hmm.
as a daughter or granddaughter, or as a wife. And I'm all of those things all at the same
Hmm.
time. And
Yeah.
I find that it's rare to have a book in this area that deals with someone with different physical abilities.
Hmm.
It's not something that we see often. And so I thought that was really important. And I also thought it was a nice way to, because the book doesn't focus on Melody's culture at all. And in fact,
Yeah.
in the movie, he's white.
Like,
And
oh.
yeah, so it's not really about that. So I think that what's most important here is the fact that we get to see what it feels like to not be heard, or
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
for
That's a good
someone
point.
to see you on the outside and make assumptions about you.
Yeah.
And to me, it correlates to some of the Black American cultural experiences without overtly being about
Hmm.
that.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And also, too, it's a great window to people who have disabilities. If you don't have one yourself and you're like, oh, I can put myself in that person's shoes and oh, that must be so frustrated to like have all these great ideas and thoughts and not be able to communicate with them with people. And I just that's is a beautiful, it sounds very sad and my daughter was sad, but it's one of those beautiful, touching stories that changes you as a person and you're not the same after you finish reading it.
It reminds me, the other day I was talking to someone and she said she read this quote of some guy I don't know that she follows, and he said something like you're talking to another reader when you can be like, oh my goodness, this gut wrenching book
Yeah.
ripped me on the inside and just made me pour my whole heart out, my soul on the table, and I didn't know what to do. And the person's, oh my goodness, that's terrible. I can't wait to read it. I'm like, I want to go through that emotional roller coaster with you. That's
Oh, that's so funny. Okay, and then my last one, and it's so hard to choose because there are so many good ones, but one of my has been my favorite for a very long time is Brown Girl Dreaming. So Jacqueline Woodson, I feel like is one of those authors that is really important to know. I've read several of her books, but the fact that it's written in verse and it's not prose, I think is very unique as well. And so I actually got to hear her speak. So a part of the book takes place in Greenville, South Carolina, which is where I used to live. And so she came and she gave a talk. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, kids, that book that we read, this lady's coming to town. We all have to go see her. And we went there, and my kids were one of only like 10 kids in the entire room. The rest of the room was full of adults, and they were mostly older women in probably 60s, 70s age range. And they just got up and shared about their experience of living in segregated Greenville, South Carolina, and how it related to the book and how healing it was for them to read this children's book and experience as someone was like putting to words what they lived through in their childhood. It was an incredibly moving experience for all of us. But so why did you choose this book?
okay. So yes, Jacqueline Woodson. You know what I mean? Like she kind of can do no wrong. Like if you got a chance to flip my book over the back, she gave an endorsement for Soul
Oh,
School,
I didn't see that. Oh my goodness.
and I
Congratulations.
was just like,
Wow. Big
it was
fangirl
definitely
moment.
like, yeah, it was a highlight. I was like jumping up and down, screaming. my house when that came through. This book, let me just share like the quote. For every book in here, I share a quote from the book, and it says, "I believe in one day and someday and this perfect moment called now." And
Mm,
so I feel like this book really crosses time so
mm,
seamlessly and takes you from place to place,
yeah.
from time to time, but it's all woven together into a single story, and it's almost flawless. And
Hmm.
I think we could underestimate how difficult that
Yeah.
would be to create something like that. So it's like a work of art, and
It
like you
is.
said,
Yeah.
it's written in verse. So she packs like every single word matters
Mm,
because there aren't that many words on each page, and yet she's unfolding an elaborate story. I loved the honesty, but again, and I guess this is what I just keep coming back to, but it's very hopeful. She talks about some
mhm,
very difficult, hard things, and a lot of times we think that when we talk about these things, it's bad. We shouldn't talk about these, it's going to make people feel bad or whatever. But how on earth did she talk about these things? And then when you finish and you close the book, you feel
mm,
good. And so I think that is a reflection, I believe, of who she is as a person. And it's coming across through this book about her life. I think it's a great entry into books in verse for
mm,
someone who
mhm.
isn't used to reading that way. It does take some time to get used to it. I love it. Maybe too much novels in verse and other books in verse. My kids would be like, oh my goodness, here she goes again. But I do think it takes some getting used to. And this is a really
Mhm,
good one to
mhm.
dig into because it's easier to understand and it's really compelling and like pulls you forward through the story. So yeah, those are some of the reasons. I think it talks a lot about belonging and when she times in her life
Mhm,
where she felt like she belonged and times she didn't. And also
mhm,
this idea of how sometimes you belong in a place, but sometimes you might be out of place, but if you have a person that you belong with,
mhm.
you can sustain even if you feel that you don't belong in that place. So people
Yeah,
can evoke feelings of belonging, not just places.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, because it follows her story from, is it Detroit where it starts?
Ohio?
Ohio, somewhere up
Awesome.
north, and
Yeah.
Ohio to Greenville to New York City. And it's like for my kids, they really resonated with that idea of moving because we moved a lot. And they're like, oh, yeah, I remember we lived there. And I felt like it was a different life that I'm living now because I'm in a different place and how place affects you. And like you're saying, like in Greenville, which she experienced things she hadn't before, but then her family was so tight knit and so involved in her life and gave her that sense of belonging. Her grandparents, just the beautiful relationship she had with them. And I think for my kids, really could resonate with having that kind of relationship with your grandparents and what it would be like if we actually got to live with them. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
I just, getting to see both something that was completely different from their experience, but then also getting to see things, oh, I can relate to this too. Because education's a science of relations, like we always say, right?
Yes,
So the
absolutely.
second helpings, are those books in verse, or are they just related to the
So
time period or
one big
something?
one big open sky is
Yeah, I hear that.
another novel verse, which actually
Okay.
just got it won a Newbery Honor Award 2 days
Okay.
ago. So
Oh, cool.
it's like I
Yeah.
called that guy.
Thank you. I got that. Did that first.
Yeah. And then Zora and Me being a novel, but based on the childhood of author Zora Neale Hurston. And since this
Yes.
was
Okay.
also based on an author's childhood, Joan Gilbert's.
Yeah, that's great. I really appreciate you coming on. Do you have any final words of encouragement or wisdom that you would like to impart with my folks?
No, I would just say, as I always tell people, don't be afraid to read expansively and be
Mm,
open-minded. You never know, like what treasure might be awaiting you. And I think there are a lot of treasures packed into Soul School.
yes, yes. I highlighted and circled all kinds of stuff, which maybe I shouldn't do. I was like, one of these days, am I gonna regret that I like highlight and write in all my books? I don't know. But but maybe there'll be treasures that my kids find and go, oh, I wonder why mom highlighted that.
And I actually just won at an auction a book for my daughter where the author annotated it for her. And so she wrote
What?
all in
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
it, it's crazy and so good. And so
Wow.
she like actually like, wrote all in the margins and said, this is what I was thinking that. And she knew she was writing it for a
Mm.
13-year-old girl. So
Oh, that's
I'm
so
like, oh my
precious.
gosh. So now I have all this pressure when I write in my books, like someday someone, they might be Goodwill, but where they pick this book up, but they might read my little
Yeah.
notes in the margin.
That's a fun, that's a treasure when you find books like that, or like books that have like little notes to people. I always love that. Oh,
Mine show a Mason Pinks. I see yours in the background.
yeah.
Mine have notes in it. I got them used, and
Oh.
somebody, another mom, had made notes in it, and I like literally feel like I know her. So,
That is because it's true. Like it's a window into someone's what
yep.
they're experiencing in a book, and what a beautiful gift to give to someone else. So that is cool. That's a good point. Thank you so much for talking to us. By the time this episode airs, they can find Soul School on Amazon, but where else can they connect with you?
They can read more about the book at soulschoolbook.com, and all of my work is at heritagemom.com and on socials at Heritage Mom Blog.
Awesome. Thank you so much for talking with me today.
Thank you.
Hey there, Julie Ross here. I just wanted to say thank you for listening to today's episode. If you like this show, it would mean the world to me if you would leave a positive review in iTunes. This really does help people learn about the podcast. And each month, I will pick a winner to receive a free gift. Don't forget to check out all the free resources we created for you at thefeastlife.me. Thank you.